So somebody asked about the pretectal nuclei versus the Edinger Westphal nucleus. And basically, the visual pathway, the light comes in and hits the optic nerve after being transduced in the retina. The signal for the nasal fiber crosses the uncrossed temporal fiber, and it's going to the geniculate body, and then the radiations to the occipital cortex. However, the pupil fiber comes off of the optic tract and travels to the dorsal midbrain. And at the level of the dorsal midbrain, it's trying to go to the efferent pathway, which is carried on the third nerve. This is the ciliary ganglion. That's the postganglionic nerve. So the Edinger Westphal nucleus is the beginning of the third nerve pupil pathway on the efferent side. This is the motor side. However, this afferent fiber from the retina, nasal fiber, temporal fiber, optic tract, this part is the pretectal nuclei. So this part of your brainstem, in this case the midbrain, is called the tectum. This is the roof. This part is before the tectum. This is the pretectal nuclei. This part is the tegmentum, which is the floor of the fourth ventricle. This is the roof. This is tegmentum. And this is the basis. So when you have pretectal nuclei, that's what we mean. So this is the superior colliculus and the inferior colliculus. For the light reflex, the afferent pupil pathway carried from the tract is going from these pretectal nuclei to both Edinger Westphal nuclei. So the pupil fiber actually innervates both eyes. So that's why we can compare the two eyes, because the direct response and the consensual response from the fellow eye should be the same. And if you have a relative difference between the two eyes, that we call a relative afferent pupillary defect, and you can watch that video and see what that means. But if you have a defect in the pupil pathway on the afferent side relative to the fellow eye, we call that an RAPD, and one of the places it can occur is before the Edinger Westphal nucleus in the pretectum, and that is called a tectal RAPD. So the bottom line, a pretectal lesion is in front of the Edinger Westphal nucleus. The Edinger Westphal nucleus for the pupil begins the efferent pathway, and you need to be cognizant of this pretectal afferent pathway from the optic tract that innervates both Edinger Westphal nuclei and is part of the afferent pupillary pathway, and therefore you can get an RAPD in the tectum called a tectal RAPD.